What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for Your Overwatch. New patch went on to the live version of the game straight from the experimental only after a few days. Everything went through, but seeing as we skipped the tier list video for ranked this week, I thought the bans were kind of unimpactful. Ball, Hanzo, Mercy, all were fine heroes, but not meta shakers necessarily. So because of this, the last few days of this week's meta is about as standard Overwatch patch as you can get, because none of them are necessary components to counter something. There's overlap with all their playstyles. It's a good week to dive into these changes that just went live and how it's going to affect everything. So as a refresher, let's run through and break down who the winners and losers of these patches are. Ashe's buff was massive. More shots in her magazine. Her follow-up shot after shooting a scope shot is immediate, making her insane in duels. There's less downtime after shooting a scope shot for reloading, and a bit of a muscle memory change where it won't queue up your next shot if you're spamming fire in between shots. It'll just treat it as a dead input. But one of the biggest buffs, you guys corrected me in the comments of the last video, appreciate that. This patch note, unscoped shots to reach maximum spread increased from 4 to 6. I'd critique the English on this, that's why I got tripped up. But what it actually means is that you can shoot 6 shots before you reach the maximum spread, which is why I thought the hipfire felt better. It really did. So not only do you more quickly hit that follow-up shot with hipfire after shooting a scope shot, you can spam it for longer. All of this is a huge buff to Ashe, and because of that, I think that's why on the other side of things they have buffed Fara as well, where she just gets a straight splash damage buff. And it'll be interesting to see what you guys think to this interaction change. Counters in Overwatch are pretty sharp right now, so at the pro level, only a diva is required to counter Pharah, but for the average ranked player, it kind of depends to me how good the Pharah player is. Many of you said that the old version of Ashe was enough to delete Pharah. I think that's if she's playing really badly. I thought it was harder if she used cover, but perhaps most Pharahs don't play that well. Well, with another hit scan option that can go for a scope shot and then spam her out of the sky, if the Pharah doesn't play well enough, she gets more instantly punished, but I think if she does play well, she will be more viable. It's gonna be weird. Splash damage is a really big deal. You can think of it like Pharah's windows to hit an effective shot have just increased. Because in the old version, if you weren't hitting directs, a lot of AoE healing would just outdo what you could do. But now that's probably not gonna be the case. Keep that in mind in your ranked games. It will depend on what role you're in. Possibly support is the one that's going to feel the most shafted by this. It's gonna be more difficult on you and more on your tanks and DPS, I think, because no supports got buffed. And although characters like Bap, Zen, and Ana were pretty good at fighting Pharah before, now that she has much better splash against a lot of those characters, those duels probably go the other way. Now she has a max explosion damage of 80, which means she can 3-shot squishies with splash and no directs, which I think is very easy to hit into a backline, where before, that splash damage is coming in, and you can almost ignore it if they don't hit directs. The biggest loser in the support line is probably Moira, who I thought very easily could keep the team alive up against Pharah's poke damage. Now those health points are going to be getting stressfully low, and you're not going to feel like you just simply easily keep the team alive and farm up coal from it. Pharah, especially with a Mercy pocket, which isn't allowed this week, but it will be next week probably, is very likely going to out AoE you, remembering that in the past few months, Moira's overall healing got reduced as well. Now Pharah has the new fire rate from the big rework a long time ago, and as well the old splash damage, which certainly is a way to indicate Pharah needing to get stronger over time. I can't imagine why. We'll just leave that one alone. Overall, it's going to depend on the players in your lobby. I think Pharah is sharper now, requires better play of key positions, likely isn't going to make noise at the higher tiers, but definitely will in ranked. Look out consoles, the end is nigh, the Pharah apocalypse is back upon us. Next up, talk about Reinhardt, where his steadfast goes back down to 30, which is still an impressive number. It's more than other tanks have, but it's going to be harder to run Rein on all points than it was before with this change, and the interaction that I think you're going to notice a lot is against support characters like Lucio and Brigitte, who at the 50% value couldn't move him at all, so much so that if he got on them, they just died. But now, at the 30% value, provide enough separation to keep him at bay. That's the crazy thing about Rein. Like, the difference between him being on you and you dead, and you booping him back enough so you can get away, can be completely game-changing. Stops him from swinging, but also earth-shattering. So those two characters specifically are going to be a bit stronger against him, but all knockbacks in the game, of course. I just think they're the ones that have theirs most readily available and play in a position to hit him most of the time. And although some may fear that this may start to open the door for Double Barrier to come back again, I think the May change is going to be a much needed one to stop that from happening. Of course, the wall nerfs and everything that had already gone through and severely hurt the character, but now she just gets far, far less freeze out of her ammo, it now only being 120, though she does get more secondary fire shots. So they're trying to incentivize you to hit the range projectile icicle shot rather than relying on the freeze ray all the time. It still works, and in my testing, you'll get like 2 full freezes out of all of your ammo before you have to reload, but her reload is pretty long and downtime on May is already pretty important. Yes, she can go in her icicle, but if she spends too much time playing on the defense and doesn't set up for a disable that gets a kill, she sort of just hangs around and survives. And well, there's other characters that do that while getting value. And especially when a direct counterpart to May got buffed, Pharah, you would imagine that Reaper May in general would take a bit of a hit. And that's a pro team comp that almost entirely rests on the back of characters like Diva being really strong, or Sigma before her when he was superpowered, that they alone would shut out Pharah, but they've been reined back. She's been pushed up, so you might expect that that splash damage would come in the clutch to pressure them down, especially with their rushdown play being weaker. Last and probably least is this Genji buff. I think overall, meta-wide, high tiers, low tiers, it's not going to make a huge impact, but if you're a Genji specialist, you definitely are going to recognize this as a significant increase to your ability to play. The fluidity of Genji is getting a buff with this, now that he can fire faster with his alternate fire. Remembering that time to kill is everything in this game. If you're able to dish out another volley to confirm in a limb before the crucial healing or ability comes through, well, then Genji just snowballs through the whole fight, getting dash resets, right? So Genji's always on a knife's, or let's say Dragon Blade's edge of being too good. They've erred on the side of making him a specialist's hero for the past couple years, but there were eras where Genji was one of the best heroes in the game. He still can pull that out when you outplay your opponent, but when you look across the other flex DPS options, Pharah, Doomfist, even Reaper, Tracer got a verticality buff with her blinks recently. There's a lot of reasons not to have to pick him, but considering he can be played with a Pharah, cleaning up on her splash damage can be a legit thing. And having two vertical characters that can focus fire, well, that's pretty key. Don't let that pass you by. Pharah having more splash damage buffs dive because it makes a higher percentage of her shots set up for pressure points to create openings. At some point, if Blizzard keeps pushing and forcing that, it's going to flip the other way. Whereas defenses and healing keeps going lower and lower, certain damage picks and types that we thought were laying dormant are going to come out of the woodwork. But that's everything for today's video on this patch's winners and losers. I hope it helps you out in the remaining days of this ranked week's bans. And if on Thursday the next week's get announced and they're significant, we will pick up the weekly tier list video again, so you can expect that video to help out on your next week's ranked adventure. And to make sure you don't miss out on that video, be sure to hit the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos go live. Linked in the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. Like the video before you head out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.